Hey, so this year's been really cool for re-releases. Frank Zappa re-released One Size Fits All, I think for the 50th anniversary, and then Jethro Tull re-released a really good version of Living in the Past with a lot of kind of bonus versions and live tracks, so that's cool. One of my favorite albums of all time got re-released this year on September 5th, and it's been pretty exciting what this band has been doing for this album because they've kind of been AWOL for a while, and it's really fun. They've played a couple concerts in San Francisco, and they're coming to DC. But this is the 40th anniversary of Camper Van Beethoven's album Telephone Free Landslide Victory. And so it was really cool. They did a version for Record Store Day that has the original track listing, and I think it's the original master. And then they played a couple concerts in San Francisco for it, and it was really cool. They played the whole album twice, one each night, and then a bunch of their other songs after. And they're coming to DC to do the same thing. It's unfortunate. The lead singer David Lowery says it might be probably going to be their last concerts, or at least for a long time. I think some of the guys live overseas. But what's really cool? So I got this album when I was in high school. I originally heard this band through a Sublime tribute album that was actually out of print for a long time. And so when that album came out, Camper Van Beethoven did a cover of the song Garden Grove by Sublime, and it featured like a lot of really cool arrangement. They replaced some of the synth with violin, which is one of the kind of main instruments Camper Van Beethoven uses. And David Lowery, the lead singer, just has such kind of a cool voice. He sounds like the male equivalent of a Valley Girl. And it was really cool. So that's how I first heard of Camper Van Beethoven. So when we were on a school trip to New York, I actually was in like Tower Records, which should probably be called Tower CD or just not exist anymore. Sorry, Virgin. And so they had a copy of their Camper Van Beethoven's first album, which is called Telephone Free Landslide Victory. It was originally, I guess, supposed to be called Telephone Tree Landslide Victory, and they misspelled it on the record, and the rest is history. So this album's really cool. It's like about 50% instrumental music, and it's kind of got a lot of influence of like kind of Middle Eastern, Asian, and Eastern European music mixed with like Southwestern rock. So the band's from Southern California, and it's kind of takes a lot of that kind of influence, as well as the college rock influence of the 80s. The album came out in 85, and mixes it with, like kind of these strange violin sounds. And so I play the violin, I play the mandolin. A mandolin's probably my main instrument. And this album really kind of helped me get interested in like a lot of kind of folk music and mandolin and violin music. So I'm super excited for this. This is the version that came out for Record Store Day, and it has all the original track listing, tracks in the order that when the album first came out. But then they recently re-released just a non-limited edition version that has all the same tracks, but in like the order they prefer playing it in. So like the Day Last You Went to the Moon is the first song instead of the second. Border Scuff the second instead of the first. But just I've always loved this album. It's really kind of inventive, and it's kind of cool. They do a lot of kind of like folk music mixed with like Southwestern and surf rock. So like one of my favorite songs on this album is called Mao Reminisces about his days in southern China. And they take kind of an East Asian theme, and they're not parodying it. They're like really kind of trying to play it in like a Southwestern style. So it has like a mix of violin, both bowed and pizzicato, and then like kind of just Southwestern guitar parts. And stuff like that is really cool. It kind of flows in an interesting way, either version of the album. It's got a lot of kind of surprises for you. When I first bought this album, they re-released, it was another re-release, and it had a bunch of bonus tracks, but the bonus tracks were in the middle of the album, which has always kind of seemed funny to me. And they did that on two of their other re-releases, for their album 2 and 3 and their self-titled album. And so like there's like 5 songs in the middle of the album, and then when you get a vinyl version, you're like, oh, those songs aren't part of the album. But it's still a great album. It's really cool. And then they also re-released a CD, and the CD has the whole album, but it also has a bunch of like acoustic demos that are kind of fun. Like they're full band, they're not just acoustic guitar, but some of them are instrumental, but then there's some songs that like, you know, made it to the album, and also some just like fun songs they wrote and never recorded. And it's interesting because like the track "The Day Lassie Went to the Moon," which is you know, on the album, I think it's got a different singer. You know, it sounds kind of like a Kinks demo from like the early 60s, you know, a bunch of guys kind of singing in the background while one guy sings and plays guitar. They do a cover of White Riot by The Clash that's like much slower and folky and kind of improvised lyrics. And I know they do that song in their live show too, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, this band has just always been super interesting to me. It's a 2 guitar players, singer, drummer, bass player, and then a guy who plays the violin and some other instruments, keyboards. And then they've also had kind of some other characters play with them. They had a woman play violin for a while. And then they also had a guy who played like mandolin, who I think is now the guitar player for like Counting Crows. So lots of cool stuff. It's like this, I really appreciate the CD because it's like what you would want out of a band that hasn't been active for a while. You know, you hear kind of their early work, and it's like, even though it's like kind of, you know, the recordings show their time, they're just fun recordings that are, you know, really nice to listen to and kind of figure out how they got their start. So I highly recommend this reissue, Telephone Free Landslide Victory by Camper Van Beethoven. Their other albums are great too. They did a whole album cover of Tusk by Fleetwood Mac, which is another one of my favorite albums. The original version and their re-release. So it's just been like really fun to listen to all their different stuff. And they've done a really good job reissuing stuff with like a good legitimate amount of bonus tracks and interesting content to go with it. So I don't know if this band's going to be performing live much more, but I'm excited to see if they, you know, keep digging into stuff they've recorded. Anyway, really highly recommend Telephone Free Landslide Victory by Camper Van Beethoven.